Okay, now we're going to talk about actually observing inventory and auditing inventory and observing inventory. So, your client is in charge of inventory, right? I mean, it's their inventory, right? So they make the rules, they take the inventory. So you have to understand what the client's doing, all right? So when it comes to inventory, you need to understand what your client's doing. Do they have a record of who's doing the inventory, right? What's the instructions for doing inventory? Like, what do they tell people to go do? Are they noting when stuff's obsolete or damaged, right? Because remember, they have this valuation. If stuff's obsolete or damaged, it's not worth that, right? So are the people that your client's telling to go do the inventory, a lot of times they're these hired outside companies. Are they watching for damaged or obsolete stuff? How do they control what they're counting, right? So there's usually a system of tags that they use to say count this, not this. This has already been counted. So how are they making sure that all the inventory gets counted, but none of it gets counted more than once, right? How are they controlling that? How do they compile it? How do they add it all together? Are they shutting down production while they do the count? How is that working? How are they making sure that things aren't getting counted twice as they're moving along? Are supervisors reviewing it? Are there changes, corrections? Like, what is that? How does that work? So you would want to get copies of their worksheets and look them over. Just you need to understand what your client's doing. All right, you're not taking a full inventory. Right, I want to stress this, especially imagine some of these bigger clients. You can't take a full inventory of a production line because you're not there the whole time. So anyway, what do? Well, you are going to observe some of their inventory count. All right, so they should have some process that you now understand. You've looked at their sheets, their inventory sheets, and right, you kind of get it. You understand their instructions. You know what they're doing. So you're going to observe. You're going to do some tests, right? So you're, in addition to observation of inventory, is not your only test of inventory. All right, you're going to test their pricing. How are they doing it? You're going to use some analytical procedures, right? Like I said, see the turnover, what's going on. Do they have too much inventory? So you're going to do some tests, but your main test will be physical inventory observation. So when inventory is material, as an auditor, you're required to observe your client doing some inventory. Maybe not all of it. Maybe you can. Maybe it's one location and they do inventory once a year and you can go watch. Frequently, large production facilities, large retailers do what they call cycle counts. So they count certain things at certain times of the year, especially things that are sold at different times of year, right? So Home Depot is going to count all the winter stuff at the end of winter. They're going to count summer stuff at the end of summer, right? So they call it cycle counting. So you might be doing test counts at times other than year end, and then so that's called interim testing. And then you do test roll forward or roll back. What will you do? Well, you'll review the client's instructions. You'll make sure flows of goods are stopped so you can make some test counts, right? So you will do some tests, some small test counts, and compare it to what their client inventory is, right? To make sure that they're doing it right. And you'll keep your work papers. It's like, yes, you'll do some inventory. You will physically go and count some boxes or something. Kind of fun, actually. Get you go somewhere, go around in a warehouse, or go somewhere a little different. It's kind of fun. So when you're there, your point is, remember, you're observing. So you listen to what they're you make sure that what they're telling the count team matches with what they told you. Understand how the tags work, or most of the times they're using, like, they scan a SKU with a gun and type in a number, or sometimes they are reading stuff with RFID. They're like little chips. They're like little computer chips, and they're scanned, and it tells them, instead of scanning a SKU, right, with one of those laser guns, they scan this RFID. But the problem is, if you're using scanners and RFIDs, and you've read this box has an RFID chip on the box, and it says, "Hey, I'm a carton of screws." Well, maybe it's empty, right? I mean, all you've done is read the SKU. So you have to be aware of what are called hollow squares. In other words, on a pallet, if a pallet has a hollow square, is like a pallet might be 5 across and 5 across. So you'd assume, okay, it's 5 by 5, right? So 25. But if it's like hollow in the middle, that's not quite right. Empty boxes. So you got to be careful of that. You got to make them bring the stuff down from way up high in the warehouse so you can make sure that the stuff's really in it. You have to make sure that the stuff that's in it is what it says it is. Yes, and that does involve sometimes opening boxes, tearing things open. I used to have to tear things open to look and see the serial numbers on things, because some things are worth a lot of money. One thing is worth a lot of money, so you have to look at it. So walk around, tour the area. You can make sure they're stopping things. You can make sure there's not old inventory tags from last year. This happens sometimes, like, oh, they're going to skip that. Or if there's still old inventory tags from last year, what the heck? How come that stuff hadn't sold? Right? Is that obsolete? Somebody got dust on it. Maybe it's broken. Maybe stuff's leaking out of it. I mean, it's like you'll see all kinds of things. You need to confirm the inventory that's on consignment and at other locations. I can't tell you how important this is. I have totally been told that thing you were looking for, a $1 million item. Like, remember, inventory of Holt Caterpillar, you're talking about multi-million-dollar bulldozers, right? So it's like, I was told one time a $1 million boat was somewhere else, so I went somewhere else. No, it's not here. You know, it's like they'll tell you, they think you won't go to that other place. So go to the other place. Consider use of specialists. You're going to have to use specialists sometimes. I think I've told you about the jewelry store that I went to that, I was like, oh, are these really diamonds? I don't have any way of knowing. Right? And inventory in transit, remember, you should have access to the shipping documents, so the bill of lading will tell you if it's FOB shipping point or destination. So if they own it, it could be theirs and part of their inventory, but it's just in transit. So you need to confirm that. All right, so that's how you do physical inventory stuff. We'll come back our last video, we'll just kind of wrap up substantive testing.